Hi folks, and welcome to our Philos virtual afternoon tea. I hope you're seated comfortably. Today we have an interesting program for you. We have some music entertainment from Chris and Lawrence. Then we have a quiz with Abby, 20 questions, so have your pen and paper ready. And then we have a really interesting interview with a gentleman called Mo Timbo, and he has a really interesting story to share with you. So relax and enjoy.
Hello Philos friends, it's Chris here. How are you doing? Nice to be able to be singing for you again. I hope you're all keeping all right and looking after each other and keeping well. I'm going to do a couple of songs for you today, and the middle one actually is a song that Beth and I recorded a little while ago when we were at Letham Church for an event that we were singing for the Cornhill Macmillan Memorial Service, When You Say Nothing at All. So I'm going to do a song now here, then I'm going to put that song up, and then I'll do another song to finish. Here we go. Come on, let's twist again, like we did last summer. Oh, let's twist again, like we did last year. Do you remember when things were really humming? Oh, let's twist again, twisting time is here. Oh, round and round, and up and down we go again. Baby, make me know you love me so, and then let's twist again, like we did last summer. Oh, let's twist again, like we did last year. Let's twist again, like we did last summer. Do you remember? Oh, let's twist again, like we did last year. Do you remember when things were really humming? Oh, let's twist again, twisting time is here. Round and round and up and down we go again. Oh, baby, make me know you love me so. And then let's twist again, like we did last summer. Oh, let's twist again, like we did last year. Saxophone. Oh, let's twist again, twisting time is here. Let's twist again, twisting time is here. One more time. Let's twist again, twisting time is here. Let's twist again. There you go. Okay, here's Beth and I singing a bit of a change of pace now, obviously. And this is us singing at Letham Church. And When You Say Nothing at All. Hope you enjoy. And, we thought we would just do a song for you guys and sing as we're here, and we've got all the stuff set up. So Beth's favourite song is
A little bit boyzone, When You Say Nothing at All.
When You Say Nothing at All, so we're going to do that. I think we've done it in crooning before, but because Beth's here. It makes all the difference, as you will see. So, you ready?
All ready. Let's let her
Here we
be.
go. It's amazing how you can speak right to my heart. Without saying a word, you can light up the dark. Try something I could never explain. What I hear when you don't say a thing. The smile on your face lets me know that you need me. There's a truth in your eyes saying you'll never leave me. And the touch of your hand says you'll catch me whenever I fall. You say it best when you say nothing at all. Oh, that's beautiful. All day long I can hear people talking out loud. But when you hold me near, you drown out the crowd. Giants that they can never define what's been said between your heart and mine. The smile on your face lets me know that you need me. There's a truth in your eyes saying you'll never leave me. And the touch of your hand says you'll catch me whenever I fall. You say it best when you say nothing at all. Oh, the smile on your face lets me know that you need me. There's a truth in your eyes saying you'll never leave me. And the touch of your hand says you'll catch me whenever I fall. You say it best when you say nothing at all. The smile on your face lets me know that you need me. There's a truth in your eyes saying you'll never leave me. And the touch of your hand says you'll catch me whenever I fall. You say it best when you say nothing at all. That was beautiful. Oh, well done, Beth. So that was When You Say Nothing at All. And do one more song before I go, and Spirit in the Sky. Here we go. When I die and the rain makes it rest, gonna go to the place as blessed. you must. Gotta have a friend in Jesus. So you know that when you die, He's gonna recommend you to the Spirit in the sky. Going on up to the Spirit in the sky. It's where I'm gonna go when I die. When I die and then lay me to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. Alright. Always been a sinner, I know I sinned, but I got a friend in Jesus. So I know that when I die, He's gonna set me up with the Spirit in the sky. Going on up to the Spirit in the sky. That's where I'm gonna go when I die. When I die, you lay me to rest. I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. When I die and then lay me to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's best. When I lay me down to die, I'm going on up to the Spirit in the sky. Going on up to the Spirit in the sky. That's where I'm gonna go when I die. When I die and then lay me to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. There you go, Spirit in the sky. Take care, folks. Lots of love. God bless you. And hopefully see you in 2021. Take care. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
So you gotta work late. Sometimes I wonder what am I gonna do, 'cause I ain't no cure for the summertime. Well, mama told me, son, you gotta have some money. If you want it, you gotta go riding on Sunday. Sick. You can't use the car 'cause you didn't work a lick. Sometimes I wonder how I'm gonna do, 'cause I ain't no cure for the summertime. I'm gonna take 2 weeks, gonna have a fun vacation. I'm gonna take my problem to the United Nations. Son, but you're too young to vote. Sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do, 'cause I ain't no cure for the summertime. But until then, well, I've got this blue boy blue.
Folks, I just want to bring you a special announcement about our next Philos event. It's not going to be on a Thursday. It's going to be on Sunday, the 13th of December at 6 o'clock in the evening. And it's going to be called Christmas Box 2020. We wanted to deliver to you this special Christmas box. It's an interactive box, with items in it that are part of the program. We've got some great music from a band in Manchester, some interesting special guests, and you'll also be able to sing along to some Christmas carols. It's really an event not to miss. So whoever organised your Philos box for you, tell them how many boxes you need for the Christmas box event, and we'll get this special box delivered out to you. We look forward to you taking part in our online Christmas event.
Good evening and welcome to this month's virtual Philos quiz. I'm Abby, your quiz master, and it's great to have you all join me again this evening. Before we get started with this month's quiz, I'd like to say a quick congratulations to a few people who did score more than 13 on last month's quiz. These people are Elizabeth Ferrier, Helen Suland and Ella Johnson, Lawrence and Leslie Richardson, Alison and Maya Parsons, Rani Melrose, Anne Spresser, Janice and Leanne Fahy, Marion Anderson and George Hutchison. And a special congratulations should go to the highest scorer, who scored an amazing 18 out of 20, and that was John Napier. So well done to you all, and you should all have received a small medal within your afternoon tea box as a congratulations for your efforts. This month, the quiz is again 20 questions split over 2 rounds. And if you score more than 13, we would like to hear from you. So if you could please text your name and your score to 0797 567 6102. So to get going with round 1, question 1. On which side of a ship is port? A, the front, B, the right, or C, the left? On which side of a ship is port? A, the front, B, the right, or C, the left? Question 2 is how many Prime Ministers have served under Queen Elizabeth II's reign? A, 14, B, 15, or C, 16? How many Prime Ministers have served under Queen Elizabeth II's reign? A, 14, B, 15, or C, 16? Question 3 is Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead is a song from which musical? Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead is a song from which musical? Question 4 is on a bottle of HP sauce, what does the HP stand for? On a bottle of HP sauce, what does the HP stand for? Question 5 is the World Health Organization's headquarters is based in which city? A, Copenhagen, B, Bucharest, or C, Geneva? The World Health Organization's headquarters is based in which city? A, Copenhagen, B, Bucharest, or C, Geneva? Question 6 is how many squares are there on a standard snakes and ladders board? How many squares are there on a standard snakes and ladders board? Question 7 is Bombay is the former name of which Indian city? Bombay was the former name of which Indian city? Question 8 is distilled juniper berries are used to make which spirit? Distilled juniper berries are used to make which spirit? Question 9 is what is the President of the United States of America's official aeroplane called? What is the President of the United States of America's official aeroplane called? Question 10 is what is sodium chloride more commonly known as? What is sodium chloride more commonly known as? So now we will go through the answers for round 1. So we will move back to question 1, which was on which side of a ship is port? A, front, B, right, or C, left? And the correct answer is C, left. So port side of a ship is the left-hand side. Question 2 was how many Prime Ministers have served under Queen Elizabeth II's reign? A, 14, B, 15, or C, 16? And the correct answer is A, 14. 14 Prime Ministers have served under Queen Elizabeth II's reign. Question 3 was Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead is a song from which musical? And it's from The Wizard of Oz. Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead is a song from The Wizard of Oz. Question 4 was on a bottle of HP sauce, what does the HP stand for? And the correct answer is Houses of Parliament, as it was rumoured that the sauce was used in the restaurant there back at the turn of the 20th century. So on a bottle of HP sauce, the HP stands for Houses of Parliament. Question 5 was the World Health Organization's headquarters are based in which city? A, Copenhagen, B, Bucharest, or C, Geneva? And the correct answer is C, Geneva. So the World Health Organization's headquarters are in Geneva. Question 6 was how many squares are there on a standard snakes and ladders board? And the correct answer is 100. There are 100 squares on a snakes and ladders board. Question 7 was Bombay was the former name of which Indian city? And the answer is Mumbai. So Bombay was the former name of the Indian city of Mumbai. Question 8 was distilled juniper berries are used to make which spirit? And the correct answer is gin. So distilled juniper berries are used to make gin. Question 9 was what is the President of the United States of America's official aeroplane called? And it is Air Force One. So Air Force One is the name of the President of the United States of America's official aeroplane. And question 10 was what is sodium chloride more commonly known as? And the answer is salt. So sodium chloride is more commonly known as salt. We will now move on to round 2, which is another 10 questions. So we'll now go to question 11, which is what big cat can run the fastest? A, a tiger, B, a leopard, or C, a cheetah? What big cat can run the fastest? A, a tiger, B, a leopard, or C, a cheetah? Question 12 is, in which decade of the 19th century did the Irish potato famine occur? A, the 1830s, B, the 1840s, or C, the 1850s? In which decade of the 19th century did the Irish potato famine occur? A, the 1830s, B, the 1840s, or C, the 1850s? Question 13 is, Tenerife, Las Palmas, Lanzarote and Fuerteventura are all part of which island group? So Tenerife, Lanzarote, Fuerteventura and Las Palmas are all part of which island group? Question 14 is, Aldi's opened their first supermarket in the UK on the 5th of April 1990, but what city was that in? A, London, B, Manchester, or C, Birmingham? So Aldi's opened their first supermarket in the UK on the 5th of April 1990, but what city was that in? A, London, B, Manchester, or C, Birmingham? Question 15 is, what is the lowest temperature to have ever been recorded in the North Pole? A, minus 68 degrees, B, minus 79 degrees, or C, minus 83 degrees? What is the lowest temperature to have ever been recorded in the North Pole? A, minus 68 degrees, B, minus 79 degrees, or C, minus 83 degrees? So question 16 is, in which year was the film Dirty Dancing released? A, 1986, B, 1987, or C, 1988? In which year was the film Dirty Dancing released? A, 1986, B, 1987, or C, 1988? Question 17 is, how many dwarfs does Snow White live with? How many dwarfs does Snow White live with? Question 18 is, what is the longest river in the world? What is the longest river in the world? Question 19 is, what is Usain Bolt's 100-meter world record time? A, 9.40 seconds, B, 9.56 seconds, or C, 9.58 seconds? What is Usain Bolt's 100-meter world record time? A, 9.40 seconds, B, 9.56 seconds, or C, 9.58 seconds? And our final question is question 20, which is, where is the Mona Lisa painting displayed? Where is the Mona Lisa painting displayed? So now we will go through the answers for round 2, and we'll move back to question 11, which was, what big cat can run the fastest? A, a tiger, B, a leopard, or C, a cheetah? And the correct answer is C, cheetah. So a cheetah is able to run the fastest out of all the big cats. Question 12. was in which decade of the 19th century did the Irish potato famine occur? A, the 1830s, B, the 1840s, or C, the 1850s? And the correct answer is B, the 1840s. So the Irish potato famine occurred in the 1840s. Question 13 was Tenerife, Las Palmas, Lanzarote and Fuerteventura are all part of which island group? And the answer is the Canary Islands. So Tenerife, Las Palmas, Lanzarote and Fuerteventura are all part of the Canary Islands. Question 14 was Aldi's opened their first supermarket in the UK on the 5th of April 1990. Put what city was it in? A, London, B, Manchester, or C, Birmingham? And the answer is C, Birmingham. So Aldi's opened their first supermarket in the UK in Birmingham on the 5th of April 1990. Question 15 was what is the lowest temperature to have ever been recorded in the North Pole? A, minus 68 degrees, B, minus 79 degrees, or C, minus 83 degrees? The correct answer is A, minus 68 degrees, and this was recorded on the 6th of February 1933. So the lowest temperature to have ever been recorded in the North Pole was minus 68 degrees on the 6th of February 1933. Question 16 was in which year was the film Dirty Dancing released? A, 1986, B, 1987, or C, 1988? And the correct answer is B, 1987. So the film Dirty Dancing was released in 1987. Question 17 was how many dwarfs does Snow White live with? And the correct answer is 7. So Snow White lives with 7 dwarfs. Question 18 was what is the longest river in the world? And the correct answer is the Nile. So the Nile is the longest river in the world. Question 19 was what is Usain Bolt's 100-meter world record time? A, 9.40 seconds, B, 9.56 seconds, or C, 9.58 seconds? And the correct answer is C, 9.58 seconds. So Usain Bolt's 100-meter world record time is 9.58 seconds. And our final question was question 20, and that is where is the Mona Lisa painting displayed? And it is displayed at the Louvre Museum in Paris. So the Mona Lisa painting is displayed at the Louvre Museum in Paris. So thank you everybody for joining me again. I really enjoy making up these questions and going through them with y'all, and I hope you all enjoy it too. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the programme that we've got for you this evening.
Well, folks, my special guest this evening is Mo Timbo, and it's a great privilege to have him join us. He lives in Hull, but he's got a very interesting story. So Mo, thank you for joining us, and maybe we could start with just asking you a wee bit about where were you born and brought up, and give us a flavour of your background.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me. So I grew up in Southeast London in a place called Peckham, and Southeast London is pretty much known to be one of the roughest areas in England in terms of gang violence. You know, people would have heard about a lot of the knife crime in London, the gun crime culture in London. And so the area that I was raised in Southeast London, Peckham, was pretty much at the top of that. And so I grew up in an environment where seeing gangs was kind of my everyday routine. Going to schools, when I remember I was in school and there were gangs in schools, and we had in Southeast London there were two rival gangs, and I think people would have heard of these two areas, one called Peckham and another called Brixton. And so these are notorious areas in Southeast London. And so the school that I went to was in the middle of Peckham and Brixton. And so you used to have guys from Brixton going to this school, guys from Peckham going to this school. And literally there wouldn't be a day that would go by without one of these gang members being involved. And so for me, that was the environment that I was raised in. And the problem for me was that even though I was in that environment, I would say I was raised by decent parents. My parents were good, honest people working hard. My dad was a lawyer, so he was a professional. He used to work in immigration law, had his own law firm. My mum was working as a nurse. So I kind of grew up with a stable family background. But one of the things that changed is as mum and dad had, marital problems and things started happening, they split. And as they split, mum and dad left the home. And so for me, I think that was when the big change happened for me, was growing up in that environment, that culture of being on the outside, but then on the inside, not having a male role model that could stop that outside culture influencing me. And so once my dad had disappeared, when he was there, I used to get, I was in the top sets for all my education groups, top sets in maths, top sets in English. But the moment he was removed, the influence from the culture that I was in South London started not only to attract me, but it started to appeal to me. So I started to look at it and think, this is the lifestyle I want to be involved in. And from a young age, teenage age, I started getting involved in that culture. And I remember the shift happened for me when the breakdown in the home started. And
Mo, part of your story is that you actually ended up in prison, and also I'm interested in, your name would suggest that you're from a Muslim background. Can you tell us a wee bit about that and how you ended up actually in prison from what was really quite a good start?
Yeah, so I was raised, my family are all Muslim, so my name Mo is Muhammad, like the Prophet Muhammad. And so I was raised as a Muslim. I used to go to the mosque as a young child. I used to go upstairs into, they used to take us, all the young kids, whilst the adults were praying downstairs, they would take all the young kids upstairs to learn Arabic and to learn about the culture of Islam. And so my dad was hardcore into it. And so because of that, I used to go a lot as a young child. And I think for me, that's when I started having an understanding about God. So I started having an understanding that there is a God out there. I grew up with that. But what started happening is, as I got more involved in crime, I started seeing myself change. So although I had an understanding of God, because my dad had left the house, and I wouldn't say solely down to him, because, he tried his hardest, even though he wasn't in the house, he used to still try and check up on me. But as I was with these, some of the gang members, I started getting heavily involved. And so because of that, I started selling drugs, I started selling cannabis, I started smoking cannabis. In fact, it started off smoking cannabis. That's where it started. And so there came a point where I started smoking too much cannabis that I realized I had to make money from it. And so I started selling cannabis. But then it came to a point where all the cannabis I was selling, I ended up smoking. And so I thought, oh, this isn't good business. And so that's when I started moving on into harder drugs, because my friends around me were selling crack cocaine and heroin. And some of them were making £5,000-6,000 a week selling crack cocaine and heroin. And so I remember looking at that as a teenager thinking, okay, that's what I want to do. I need to start selling crack cocaine and heroin because there's no money in cannabis. And so from the age of 16, I started selling crack cocaine and heroin. And one day I had, it was what we used to do is we used to travel from London and we used to branch out into neighborhood cities or neighboring cities. So I used to go to Southend and Bournemouth, and I would travel from London, go there, with some drugs. I would take like a few ounces of crack cocaine, a few ounces of heroin, and I'd literally walk on the streets all day looking for crack addicts or looking for heroin addicts to give some drugs to. And so I would do that for a few weeks. And once my reputation built up in that city, I would start to hire younger teenagers from London. So they would come up, 13-year-old, 14-year-olds, and I would give them the jobs to run for me. And so that was started happening from the age of 16 to 19. But at the age of 19, something happened. And one of the youngers that I had sent to go and sell some drugs for me, he'd been robbed. So I sent him with some drugs, and he went to sell it. And as he went to sell it, he got robbed by one of the crack addicts or the heroin addicts. And so as he came back to me, he told me he'd been robbed. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go next time. So I remember I took a knife with me. I said, okay, I'm going to go. If anyone tries to attack me, I'm going to attack them back. And so as I went there, I felt in my mind, I just felt this isn't the right atmosphere. So I chucked the knife away for some reason. I just put the knife in the bush, threw it away, and I kept on walking. And as I walked, I saw what seemed to be one of the crack addicts. And as I went over them to sell to them, I realized it wasn't a crack addict, it was an undercover police officer. And so I handed over the crack cocaine to the undercover police officer. And at that point, all these other officers were hiding around the bushes. They came out, they arrested me, and then they put me in they took me straight to the prison cell. And as they took me to the prison cell, they searched me, they searched the area, they found the weapons, they found the crack, the heroin, they found a few £1,000s worth of cash, and they put me in a prison cell. And they said to me that from that, so you got to imagine, I'm 19 years old, and they said to me, I'm going to prison now for 10 years. And so at that point, I'm calculating, I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to come out of jail when I'm 29 years old. And at that point, I looked up in the ceiling in the prison cell, and there was a sign that said, "Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired?" And I remember saying to myself at the age of 19, I'm tired of this life. I shouldn't be like this at the age of 19. You know, I've come from a decent family home. I got good grades in school, my GCSEs, my dad's tried, he's not here, but he's tried his best. My mum's tried the best. Why am I in this position? At that point, I'd been arrested, I think up to 26 times, but I'd never been caught with anything. So this was the first time I'd been caught with something. And I'd been stabbed at the age of 16. My best friend was shot dead. So I remember at that point, it was a real sort of crossroads moment in my life. And I believe that everybody has this moment in their life where they reflect on where they are in life. And so I reflected and I thought to myself, you know, I'm 19 years old, I'm in prison, I'm on the way to jail for 10 years. I've lost friends, people are trying to kill me. I need to change my life. And so because I grew up with an Islamic background, something inside of me said, what you need more than anything else is God. Because I knew from a young child, I used to go and I used to hear about God and that God's the only person that can work a miracle, you know, because up until that point, every time I've been arrested, I said I was going to change. Every time I smoked drugs, I said this was going to be my last drug. Every time I got drunk, I said this was going to be my last time. But it never changed. Every new year, I used to count down, Happy New Year, this is going to be a new year, new me. And at that point, I prayed and I said, God, if you are real, help me get out of this police station. Help me get out of this prison. And I was going to pray, but I was going to pray to Allah. And the reason obviously praying to Allah is because I was a Muslim. But as I got on my knees to pray to Allah, something inside of me said, Mo, you've been praying to Allah for all this time and nothing has changed. You've been going to the mosque during Ramadan, you've been doing all this fasting, and yet you're still the same, that nothing has changed. And so at that point, I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to pray to Jesus, because I was with a girl who's now my wife, who used to tell me about Jesus. And so I said, Jesus, if you're real, help me get out of this police station and I'll give my life to you forever. And within that seconds of praying that prayer, the police released me on bail. And for me, I just saw that as a miracle. And so from that moment, I went to a church, made up my mind I was going to go to a church. And as soon as I went to the church, I gave my life to Christ. And 9 months later, I went back to prison for the crimes I did before, but I went in as a Christian.
Mo, what was it like being a Christian, but also being in prison?
It was incredible. Up till now, I think that was the thing that has shaped me the most in my life. And because that moment for me was a case where I realized several things. I realized that if God is with me, no matter what my life is like, I'm going to be okay. I mean, you don't get worse than prison. You know? And so that helped me to understand, to have an understanding that just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I'm not going to have hard times, doesn't mean I'm not going to have problems, doesn't mean obstacles. I think sometimes people have a mindset that as soon as they give their life to God, everything in their life is going to be fixed. But here I am, I've given my life to God and I'm in prison. So that doesn't match up. And so I learned that just because I'm a Christian now doesn't mean I won't have problems in life, that problems will come. But also I learned that because I'm a Christian, my job is to help other people. Because all around me in prison, I've got all these men that used to be like me. And so I realized I could either just sit in my cell for the next 2 years and not do anything, or I can get out of my prison cell and I can try and help these other prisoners. And so that's what I started doing. I started preaching to people, over 600 guys. Every time I used to pray with someone to come to Christ, I'd write their name down. And so I had a list of over 600 names of people that gave their life to Christ in jail. 35 people, we actually had a water baptism. And because what had happened is on our wing, I was on one of the roughest wings. And when I came onto that wing started behaving better. So all the prisoners were behaving good. They weren't arguing with the officers. And so the governor of the prison was so amazed at it. She came in and she said, "What's happened?" I said, "Well, they've all given their life to Christ. That's why they've changed their behavior." And so she said, "Well, what can we do? What can we do to help this?" I said, "Can you give us a baptism?" And she said, "Baptism in prison? We can't give baptism." I said, "Yeah, please, if you get a baptism, these guys are going to behave even better." And so she managed to get a baptism pool inside the church, inside the prison. And so we started baptizing people in the jail. And so, yeah, I learned two fundamental lessons for me is number one, as a Christian, it does not mean that your life isn't going to be free from problems or free from trials. But secondly, as a Christian, my duty is, even in my hard times, is to help and to serve and to love other people. And yeah, they always used to say that I had the most joy of all the prisoners. Even the prison staff said, "You look more free than we are." And I thought that was just a powerful thing, because they could go home every day. I was still there. And they said, "You look like you have more freedom than we have." And I remember I used to say to there was a prison guard, I used to say, because the Bible says, "Who the Son sets free is free indeed." I said, "You're free, but I'm free indeed." So I mean, and so, yeah, that was my journey in prison.
Amazing. But can you tell us a bit about how you got into the pastorate, and in particular, how you got involved with trying to reduce knife crime in Hull?
So at the moment, I've been pastoring in Hull now for 5 years. You know, many people ask me, "Why did you come to Hull of all places?" And because I'd always been sort of people would say like an energetic, charismatic preacher. And so I had job offers from big churches that wanted me to work with them, you know, be assistants for churches 500, 600, 700 strong. But I turned that all down because I wanted to go to Hull. And the reason I wanted to go to Hull is I read an article, and in the article it said Hull was voted the worst place on earth to live. And so just the way my mind is wired, or the worst place in England, sorry, maybe it could be the worst on earth as well, but just the way my mind is wired, that for me wasn't a deterrent. That was an attraction. That was like, oh, right, it's the worst place. Let's go there. That's where I feel called to go. And it was and it is still one of the poorest places in England as well. And so because of my time in prison, I knew as a Christian that's where I needed to be. I needed to be in the roughest areas, the hardest areas. And so for the last 5 years, I've been here, and my wife and I we started with just us two. We never started with no big church or no one else with us. It was just us. We hired a community center, hired some leaflets and some microphone speakers. And then we built a church from scratch in 5 years now. And now we have many people who come to our church who were from a similar lifestyle as mine. You know, there was once in our church where we went outside and there were 2 police cars, undercover police cars outside our church. And they said they had to come and see. And they said the reason is because there's so many people that are on their watch list that are in our church. And so they said they just had to come and see what was happening in this church, if it really was a church. Because they said they checked my name and they realized that I'd been in prison. And so they said something isn't right about this church. And so they came in and they saw around, and they were amazed just to see the transformation of people in our church giving their life to Christ. And so that's really what I've been doing for the last 5 years. But then recently I had a burden for just to kind of help with knife crime. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned, at the age of 16, I was stabbed 5 times. I was stabbed 4 times in my arm and once in my back. And the one in my back nearly killed me. And I've been stabbed in my head. So I've been stabbed several times as a teenager growing up. And so when I became aware of the knife crime that was happening in the UK, I felt I was positioned to do something. And I felt I was positioned to do something for 3 reasons. Number one, I've lived that life. And you know, if you've lived that life, people that are living that life are more open to hearing from you. And that's really what I want to encourage people on, is that sometimes there are things that you've been through in your life that you can now use those experiences to help other people. And so because I'd been involved in knife crime, I knew I was in a position that I would be able to help and understand some of that. And secondly, there was a young guy in our church that was stabbed whilst I was preaching. So as I was preaching, one of the rival gangs came in and they saw him and they stabbed him in church. And so that again opened my eyes that, you know, even the church, we're not safe from this. So this is a spiritual issue as well. He got stabbed in the service. And then the third thing is, you know, just knowing that God has the power to transform, because I've seen a lot of people set up youth work and, you know, everyone says youth work is the answer. And, you know, if you give kids more PlayStations, then they'll be okay. When I grew up on the streets, we had youth clubs everywhere. They were everywhere. In Peckham, I mean, every other shop was a youth worker. Youth work is great, but that isn't the solution. The solution for me is a man or woman needs a change of heart. And so because I know that, and that's experience, I've experienced that, I knew I had something that could help people, that this is more than just giving them a PlayStation to play with or a football. Let's transform their heart. Let's change their heart. Let's give them something different to see themselves with. And so I believe Christ offered that. And so I started doing that, going into schools and helping people. And so the police saw what we were doing in Hull, and then they started backing us. They helped us, and they helped us go into every school in the region. And once we did a knife amnesty with the police, and in that time, 565 knives were handed in by teenagers in a month in Hull. I mean, when you think about that, you know, that's not even London where the actual heat is. That's just up in Hull. And these are young kids who were carrying knives. Their parents never knew. Their teachers never knew. They were simply carrying it for protection or because they knew someone else was. And so that's the work we've been doing over the last few years.
Well, folks, wasn't that an interesting story from Mo Timbo? And I'm sure we all appreciate that if there were more people like Mo, society wouldn't have the problems that we're facing just now. So I hope that you will remember Mo in your prayers, because the work he does is very challenging and actually quite dangerous sometimes, with some of the characters he comes across and the people that he's dealing with. Well, we come to the end of our program. Today we have the Celtic blessing for you. Last time we had the UK blessing with all the churches in Britain, but today we have a Gaelic version of it. I personally find this very moving. I always think that the Gaelic language has something special about it, and it really touches my heart. So as you listen to this, it's partly in English, but mostly in Gaelic. I hope that you'll enjoy it. It's a group of Scottish people singing this blessing for us as we close out on our Philos event.
Can be a grass for you. Good talk, egg news, I she hoş goed. Gun beyond me en cheernu gun chadrige grusjast skin be a gras for it gun talken egen nusru ageshi hoş gut. Pianoch, míle cíneach, a chuid seaba, cert a cheolach, sto chuid choláine, san chuid choláine, san chuid choláine.
May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children.
Bigger grassers, is pianoch, míle cíneach, a chuid seaba,